Welcome back to my Women in Motorsport interview series. I had the pleasure of getting to speak with W Series driver Sarah Moore for this latest instalment, and I loved that we managed to meet during Pride Month because it gave us even more of a chance to chat about Sarah's work as a driver ambassador with Racing Pride, as well as loads of other topics, including what happened to her first go-kart, which is a very funny story, and of course her experience so far in the W Series. I hope you enjoy and make sure you're subscribed. Sarah, thank you for joining me, first of all. And I suppose for people that aren't as familiar with your story, you do come from a very strong family history of motorsport. And I'm very curious to know, what's your first ever racing memory or motorsport memory?
I think my first ever memory, I started in go-karting when I was about 3.5, 4 years old. And I was that small that my dad had to build a specially built go-kart that he then painted bright pink and called the Barbie cart. So that's my earliest memory. Unfortunately, we don't have any pictures of it, but I have a lot of good memories. But then I did end up setting it on fire in the end. Accidentally, of course.
No.
I was pressing both the pedals at the same time and the clutch got a little bit hot and ended up setting on fire. So it ended badly, but we had some good times.
Amazing. And I suppose kind of on that theme of starting out really young, you have been coaching younger drivers for a while now. And I'd love to know, given that you have been in this from such a young age, like what's the kind of biggest piece of advice that you find you're sharing with younger drivers?
I think it's all down to hard work and dedication. There's a lot more involved in being a driver these days than there was even when I was a junior driver in cars. So you have to be kind of a lot more rounded. So you have to work a lot more in the fitness, and there's a lot more involved in terms of sponsorship as well. Sponsorship is getting harder and harder to get, so there's a lot more involved in that side. So you have to be, as people would say, a bit more professional, I suppose, and open-minded. And a bit more kind of switched on in terms of the financial side of motorsport, not just the case of jumping in the car and driving it these days, unfortunately. So yeah, you have to be a little bit more open-minded, but just willing to learn and work hard.
Absolutely. I suppose as far as what you're doing now, obviously W Series is your biggest focus at the moment, and I have to say I love the fact that it's been such a diverse championship from the start. I think that's fantastic, and I'd love to know from somebody that's at the heart of experiencing it, like what is it like to be part of such a unique community of drivers?
Yeah, it's a fantastic championship to be a part of. I'm going into technically my third season now. COVID put a stop to one of the year's races, unfortunately, but it's been a massive learning curve for me. I think it has for quite a lot of the drivers. Obviously, for those people that have followed it, they'll know that the drivers that have kind of stayed in the championship so far have mixed bags of experience. So you've got Jamie Chadwick, Alice Powell, Emma Keeman-Linen probably who have a lot of experience previously. So they kind of came in straight in 2019 and they were fast straight out the box, whereas there was still kind of half the grid that still had a lot to learn on how to race a Formula car in itself. So yeah, it's been a huge learning curve for me, but I've really enjoyed it. I still feel like I've got a lot to learn still, but every year that I've done, I've moved up in the championship. This year's been a bit of a tough start. It's very competitive this year, but I'm hoping that the next part of the season will hopefully move me up.
Yeah, on that theme, as you mentioned, you're sitting P11 at the moment. What is the biggest thing that you're sort of focusing on now going into these next set of races that you are looking to kind of jump further up the standings? Is there one particular thing you're focusing on? Is it more just like an overall focus?
I think my main focus has to be on qualifying. I've always had the race pace in all of the races so far this season. I've had the race pace to be easily top 5. So it's just a case of trying to sort my qualifying out. Every qualifying I've done so far, I've got stuck behind another car on one of my fastest laps, which is slightly frustrating. It's kind of a mix of, sometimes it's the engineers try and get us out in a nice space out on the track to give us enough time to bring our tyres in, get our tyres up to temp, and then be able to get a push lap in. And sometimes it's just hard to gauge. So it's been difficult qualifying so far. So yeah, moving forwards, just try and nail qualifying. I know I'm confident in myself that I've got the race pace and definitely got the racecraft. So yeah, it's just a case of trying to nail the qualifying from here.
Absolutely. And, as you mentioned, you've been in W Series for 3 years now, and you were with Team Scuderia for 2022. Obviously, the new team structure is kind of something that's quite new to the sport, but I think most people have been fans of it so far. What would you say has been the biggest plus, coming from the inside? Has it actually been much of a difference, or has it kind of stayed the same for you?
I think for me, it's kind of stayed the same. It's still kind of the same bubble of drivers, still the same group of people. Obviously, we've had the new drivers that have been coming in each year, which have been a nice addition to mix the championship up a little bit. But yeah, the addition of the teams, overall, it's just great for the championship. Obviously, that brings the sponsors in to be a part of the championship, which is what's going to keep the championship going in the long run. So yeah, it's fantastic to have the team separation, and it kind of brings it round to being a bit more of what people would class as a normal championship. Any other championship, you would have your separate teams fighting against each other, but a team championship, not only the drivers' championship. So yeah, it brings that aspect into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great to see it come on par, like you said, with what people are used to seeing. So I think that's a big part of it as well, is familiarity, because obviously motorsport is very complicated, very technical. So I think it's nice to give people a format that they kind of already understand, which is great. You mentioned that taking part in the Le Mans 24 hours was kind of a big goal of yours. Would you say that that's changed now with involvement in the W Series, or is that still kind of something that you would really love to do?
No, Le Mans is still kind of my ultimate goal. W Series hasn't changed that, and I don't think it ever will. I think most drivers, when they get to a certain age, they kind of realise that the Formula One route doesn't necessarily become impossible, but it becomes a lot harder. And I'm kind of reaching towards 30 now, so I kind of, I think endurance racing it's kind of where my heart's always been. Most people will know I look up to my older brother quite a lot, and he's raced at Le Mans himself, and he has a massive endurance background. And my dad was never a fan of single-seaters, and I think that's why I raced one for 1 year, but other than that, he was never really a fan. So yeah, I was always kind of more endurance driver than I was a Formula driver. But W Series has been great for me in the fact that it's taught me a lot about aero and how aerodynamics affects the car. So that was the main reason why I kind of joined the W Series, or went for the W Series in the first place, just for the experience to then try and help me, then to eventually go on and reach my goal.
We are obviously officially in June, which is Pride Month, and you're a driver ambassador for Racing Pride, which I love, especially as a fellow member of the LGBT community. It's awesome to have people that you can relate to, that are in these positions that you're aspiring to as well. I'd just be so curious to know what plans you have for Pride in terms of celebrating, and whether that's personally or as part of Racing Pride as well. I'm sure you have lots going on.
I don't actually have anything planned for Pride Month. I've just done a few events with Racing Pride and Aston Martin Lagonda in terms of trying to get things into kind of Aston Martin Lagonda and getting them to understand what being an ally is, and just educate them on the meaning and everything behind LGBTQ+. So yeah, that was a great couple of days I had with Racing Pride and Aston Martin Lagonda last week. I think we've got one more, or I have one more planned with them later in the month. So yeah, Racing Pride themselves, Richard at Racing Pride is doing a fantastic job himself of pushing Racing Pride, and it's just great to be a part of it. And as you just said, and I said actually when I was doing the Aston Martin events, that obviously W Series is fantastic in that it's creating drivers for the younger generation, or even any female in all fairness to look up to. But in terms of LGBTQ plus racing drivers that have kind of got limelight shining on them, there isn't really anybody. So yeah, I was saying to the guys that to be the first openly gay driver on the Formula One podium last year, although it was special for me, I always say that it meant more to me for what it meant to everyone else than it did for myself, because I'm happy with who I am. I'm happily married, my wife's amazing, and I'm extremely lucky. So yeah, it was just one of those moments where it it didn't really affect me, although sometimes I do get emotional about it. But yeah, it was just more for everyone else than it was for myself. But yeah, I don't have any plans for this Pride Month. I'm usually busy working weekends, and all the Pride events are always on a weekend. It's slightly inconvenient, but but yeah, I'm just happy as always to just spend some time at home. To be honest, it's kind of a mid-season break for us before Silverstone. So yeah, just spending some time at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Very equally as important as all the tutorial stuff, for sure. You kind of mentioned female representation specifically there as well. And when I was reading up on your career kind of at a deeper level, there's a lot of mentions where it's like, first female to win X kind of championship is mentioned. And obviously my interview series is called Women in Motorsport. I'm very much focused on a particular area, and I'd love to know, how important do you think it is for us to actually get away from the gender conversation, like focusing solely on male versus female, and kind of getting more into the space of just how talented someone is as a driver as opposed to what their gender might mean?
Yeah, I think that would be great, actually. I think from a driver's point of view, and anyone that is involved in motorsport, we all see each other just as drivers. It's more kind of the hype from the media, social media, and all that kind of stuff that brings the female aspect into it. And in all fairness, it's nice, like you say, that the championships that I have won in the past, I was the first female to have won all the championships that I have won to date, which it always sounds good, and it's always something just nice to say to kind of, again, the younger generation, when you're the first female to have beaten all of the males in what is still a male-dominated sport. I think until we get to the day where it's 50-50 in terms of males and females within the sport, I think being the first female to win a race or win a championship is always going to be something special. So as much as we'd like it just to be level across the board, which I think in the background it is, I think it's still always going to be a special moment for us to be the first female to do something. Absolutely.
And I suppose kind of pivoting on that is the representation behind the scenes as well. I'd be really curious to know on the W Series side, like if there's anything going on there in terms of, there's a huge focus on bringing more girls into STEM just generally, not just kind of the motorsport side, but STEM more broadly. I'd be really curious to know if you've seen kind of progress being made there.
Definitely. So obviously I have been in the W Series from the start. So kind of seeing how they've been bringing more females in the background, not just as mechanics, engineers, but also even down to little things like the hospitality side of things. You'd be amazed at how male orientated that actually is as well. I have seen progress. I think since the W Series started, I'm sure that the amount of females within the team, in terms of mechanics and engineers, have at least doubled since the start of the W Series. There's definitely more females involved than there was when I first started, which is always great to see.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Can't wait till we get that kind of, the more even on that side as well. It'll be fantastic.
We're going in the right direction.
Yes, exactly. We're getting there. Brilliant. Well, I usually do a 5-round finisher, which is quick fire questions. So I'll kick us off by asking, what is your favourite track that you've raced at so far in your career?
That's always an easy one. It's got to be the Nordschleife.
Okay, interesting. Any particular reason that you love that one?
It's a very tricky track, but also very rewarding. I raced as part of the VLM when I raced out there, which has got absolutely huge grids of mixed cars. So yeah, it's entertaining. You've always got to watch the mirrors, but yeah, I just think it's a very rewarding track.
Awesome. And then I'd love to know who is the biggest jokester on the W Series grid. I asked on my social media what people wanted to know, and they actually really wanted to know who are the most kind of colourful personalities. So I'd love to hear about that.
I think it is quite close between Alice Powell and Abby Eaton, but I think Alice would probably win.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of even get that vibe just from her on camera. She's very entertaining.
She's very entertaining, but she she flips as well, you know, so you've got to watch her, but she is entertaining.
You kind of alluded to this a bit earlier, but do you prefer traveling or do you prefer staying at home?
Now I'm getting older, staying at home.
And who is your most inspiring woman in motorsport? And it can be past or present.
Oh, that is a difficult question. It's a hard one, actually. I always say that when I was younger, I never knew of a female to look up to within motorsports, and the only females that I kind of know these days mainly are people that I race against. And I can't say that I look up to Alice Powell because so yeah, it's quite a difficult question, actually. One that I don't really have an answer for. I mean, drivers that I love watching and are kind of doing what I would dream of doing are the Iron Dames, all of the Iron Dames. I think like they've just done them on 24 hours at the weekend, and they didn't get the result that they wanted, but I think they did an absolutely amazing job.
Yeah, fantastic. And I always close off with this question because I find that it comes up with some very funny answers. But if you could be any cartoon character from your childhood for a day, who would you be and why?
Ooh. It's been a long time since I've watched cartoons. I don't really know. I'm just going to go with a random one and go with SpongeBob SquarePants because why not?
Why not? Absolutely. Speaking of jokesters, I feel like that's a good connection. Brilliant. Look, thank you, Sarah, for taking the time to chat. It has been great to get to know you a bit better, and wishing you absolutely all the very best of luck with the rest of the season in W Series.
Thank you very much.